All right, we are back with the Mach 1 Barbell podcast brought to you by
Coach Big Guy Bob,
Coach RJ, Coach Patrick.
Coach Jason.
Coach J-Ron.
And today's episode, we are going to talk about training frequency, consistency, and what you need to be successful. So who wants to take this one first?
I'll start.
All right.
So it's funny because I've gotten it quite a few times recently, and I think we've all gotten this before. People are like, oh, you're in good shape, you lift big weights, you must work out every single day of the week. And I'm like, that is far from the truth. And not to say that, we don't train hard or work out, but I think we've all found there's a balance between training and recovery. For me, that's like 3 or 4 days a week. And generally, I feel like that's realistic for most of the population. But you don't need to kill yourself every day to get the best results. If you're not optimizing important nutrition and recovery alongside your training, then you're just going to burn out and the wheels are going to come off. So I think that's super important. Anyone else want to take that?
I think, to your point, you definitely don't need to crush yourself every single session in the gym to get the best results. If anything, that probably sets you up for failure more than it does success. To me, training frequency is very fluid depending on what's going on in my life, right? I've had times in training where I'm in college and I'm, working a couple hours a week. I'm taking some classes a couple hours a week. I have a lot of free time. I could sleep a lot. And, I was able to do like 8 or 9 days of training in a row. And, as long as my program was made appropriately, I was able to handle it. And it wasn't too much. There's been days, over the last year or two, life is a lot different where I'm completely satisfied with getting 2 days in, right? Or that maybe not satisfied, but that's all I'm able to get. And, it works. And I'm still able to, at the very least, maintain, but even steadily make some progress. So I think for me, frequency is very adaptive based on what's going on in your life and what life allows you to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like a hierarchy to it in the sense of, one, it has to be like a realistic plan, right? I could put something perfect on paper, and if it doesn't fit your schedule and fit your needs, it's really not the perfect plan. So number one, I think the biggest thing is the consistency, whether it's 1 day, 3 day, 5 day, every day. If you're consistent and you keep showing up, that's number one. Then we can sprinkle in a little intensity here and there, and that's the periodization. And we could ramble on about periodization, forever, but we won't go too into depth. Yeah, we'll go into that with a future episode. But I think at first people really try to work really hard to make up for the consistency, but it's the long game. It's the slow burn. And if you show up, I always tell people I want the person who's going to show up twice a week and train with us for a year versus 5 days a week for 2 or 3 months and then they're gone and then we don't see them. So that's my quick bit on that.
Yeah, I've seen like what Coach RJ just said too. Like I've heard some people say like, "Oh, I was bad during the holidays. I have to punish myself and go 6 days a week now, and I'm gonna hate every second of it." And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, like it's a lot though. You don't have to like punish yourself and go 6 days a week if you can't manage it. I know personally for me, like I try to get in 6 days for me personally because that's what fits my program, and I just like working out that much, and I can squeeze time for it. But if like you're not a morning person, like I wouldn't recommend going in the morning. If you can only squeeze in 4 days, don't try to stretch out 7. I just think like it's being like what they were saying, like being realistic with your game plan is like Coach RJ said, it's a long game. So it's like this isn't like a 1 month thing where you have to just do a quick challenge and it's done and you go back to your old habits. It's setting up yourself for like lifestyle things. I think like the best way I look at training is sort of like how quarterbacks have like their audibles on their wrist, where it's like in the moment they can decide what's best for them at that moment, or maybe like whatever life throws at you. Obviously, it's good to stick to a plan. It's good to stick to your program, but you have to make it realistic with what you're expecting to come. So, especially with like, powerlifting is a very demanding sport. It takes a lot of time within the session. For me, what works now is I like stretching out my days. So I have a lot of days to train, but within each workout, it's less stuff and it's more stretched out. That's just the flow I like. Might not work for like someone that's in college. Like Coach Jason said, like if you have hours to do pretty much whatever, and then like you get to work out for like 4 hours. Like I remember at Rutgers, when I was training with my buddies, we would literally be at the gym for like 3 hours, like half working out, half kind of like just chilling. But now we're busier, so I gotta lock in. But yeah, I think it's like just looking at literally. I think what like training allows you to do is be your own life coach too. Like what fits your needs, what fits your schedule. I mean, we have people coming in at like for the 6 a.m. class, then they go to work, and we have people coming at the 5 p.m. class coming after work. And I think like whatever's realistic for your goals, don't punish yourself because you're not doing what they're doing or what she's doing, right? Like I would not compare your program to like an Olympian's program. Like, oh, Michael Phelps trains 7 days a week. Like I have to do the same thing. Like, no, bro, he gets paid to do that. Like he literally gets paid to train. Like it's like he's on a different type of league, bro. So I just be realistic, like what they were saying, be realistic, be true to yourself. Like if you feel like the training's like really too much for you and it's affecting you at work, then maybe rethink your kind of your angle of how you're doing it. But like life's always like you're always getting thrown into the shit. You got to call audibles when you can, especially for the powerlifters we train. I kind of have an unsaid, kind of unwritten but written rule where it's like the top of the program for the day is the most important and the bottom is the least important. So it's like within that day, if you can only squeeze in a certain amount, just do the top stuff and then get out. And it's sort of like an audible I have for them where in case life gets busy or they have to take exams, right? Because I don't really want the training to overlap their life, but I want it to integrate with it. So I think just follow the plan, but follow your own plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, doing this whole fitness thing for over 15 years at this point, we've seen both swings of the pendulum where high school, college, same thing, like, what do you want to do today? I don't know, let's go to the gym and then we'll figure it out. And then we're just hanging out at the gym for 3 hours and moving weights and having fun and sharing common interests. Like if your schedule and time allows you to do something like that, then by all means, get in there frequently. Go 20 days in a row if you're having fun and you're making it a social thing. But if you're truly grinding and training and like peaking for a meet, maybe your body can only tolerate 3 or 4 days. You need those active recovery days, you need the sleep, you need the nutrition, you need all those different aspects. And I mean, the reason I wasn't in the first few episodes is I wasn't even here, I wasn't even in the same time zone, right? So traveling home, I needed some time to adjust. Like today was my first workout in at least a week, I would say. And like that's just because my body needed time to reacclimate. And even today I did very sub max, like off program percentages.
Again.
Down boys. Down boys. But it was just a feel good lift. Like I did not go off the percentages prescribed. I just got a bar in my hand. I went through my reps, made sure I was hitting my position, spent a little extra time and attention on my warm ups just to keep the joints happy and ebb and flow that way. And it takes a little bit of being fluid, like you were saying, to find what's best for you at that right time. And you can always rev it up when you have the ability, and you can always pull it back when you need to. And it's okay to coast for a few days or weeks, and it's okay to push for a few days or weeks when the time calls upon it. So just knowing how your body responds is going to go a really long way.
Yeah, I guess I have a question that we can kind of run through. Say I'm coming to the gym, I'm just getting started, and like, how do I tell that I'm either doing not enough or if I'm doing too much? If anybody wants to kind of comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, the really simple answer to me is, are you getting results? Mm-hmm. And, if yes, is it at a price of something? And if no, then, it's no, right? Like finding the best training frequency for you and for your goals is slightly experimental. I think a lot of what we've just been talking about is like the very classic fitness industry answer, educated fitness industry answer of it depends. It's our favorite thing to say, but it's no one's favorite actually. Like we love saying it depends because it does. No one likes to hear it. I think in the middle of or between the words of it depends, though, there is some sort of concrete answer of research has shown, I don't have the research on me, but, working out, 2 days a week is double as effective as working out once a week. Working out 3 days a week is possibly even double as effective as working out 2 days a week. Working out 4 days a week, less than double as effective as 3 days a week. And like the higher the frequency goes, the less exponential gains you make, right? So I think there is like an ebb and a flow, but I think going back to your question before is how much is too much, right? If you feel like every session you're just re-aggravating your certain joints, you're not getting enough sleep, or you're sacrificing other areas in life, I think that's definitely a sign to pull things back a little bit, right? You know, if you're training out 6-7 days a week, I knew it.
Sorry.
I knew it.
Pattern recognition.
And you're experiencing those drawbacks, yeah, reduce it to 3 or 4, right? What?
Make sure you don't look.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's very distracting. But if you're working out even 3 or 4 days a week and you're experiencing those drawbacks, maybe other things in life are going on. You need to bring it back to 1 or 2 for a little bit, and that's okay. You have to be able to recognize what's working and why, and that's where you have your coaches also to speak with and bounce some ideas off of.
I think the results that we're looking for are pretty much the untraditional gym results. So your energy, your mood, overall, like, are you feeling stronger when you do come into the gym? Are you able to put a little extra weight on the bar? Are you able to squeeze out an extra rep, or are you feeling like burnt out and sore? Your joints are aching. You don't want to come. You're not getting good sleep. Like, those are pretty much the deciding factors on if you're overtraining or undertraining. Is if you can hit that sweet spot where everything's just super aligned and everything's spinning super smoothly. And this also goes beyond the gym to nutrition and sleep and hydration as well.
Just about to go there.
Yeah, so I'll let you elaborate on that, but those are like the other factors. Are if you are coming in 6 days a week, but you're like on a 1,500 calorie diet and you're burning more than that in a training session, and then you have your normal calorie burning for life sustainability, then we have to reevaluate a few different factors. So, Coach Sharon, let's dive into nutrition.
Yeah, no, I mean, if training, 5 or 6 days a week is what makes you happy and that's what you enjoy, by all means, go for it. But if you're going to commit to a frequency like that, or even less days with a higher intensity, you need to make sure that you are properly fueling for those sessions, because that's the key to proper recovery, and that's what's going to keep you coming back for more. Right now, like, I carb cycle on the days that I know I'm lifting, because I know I need the carbs to fuel my body. But I always make sure, I eat proper protein, because that's what repairs your muscles after. And it's funny with a lot of clients that I've worked with, they're like, I don't get it. I'm doing the weights, but I just feel so fatigued after. And then we look at their diet, and while they're not necessarily eating unhealthy foods, they're not eating enough of those foods when they need it. And just making subtle tweaks, like making sure you're getting enough carbs, or you're timing it at the right time, carbs before a workout, have a protein shake after, something like that, just to make sure that you're fueling those windows appropriately, goes a really long way. And just sometimes it's very subtle changes, but they make a huge difference in the training.
Subtle, healthy you plug right there, combining nutrition and training.
February 15th.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums up a good idea of training. When you feel like you're pushing the limits, and it's definitely a good idea to try to challenge yourself, but maybe you just have to like do this like auto regulation and check in and be like, all right, are all the things in line? And if you're experiencing some of these symptoms that we mentioned, fatigue, not sleeping well, general mood just not there, it might be time to make a little change and call the audible. What audible we call them?
Green 19.
We'll call him Green 19. And, just pull the reins back, and you give it a little time, and you'll probably be right back where you were. And you showed up, you stayed consistent, and, you're moving that snowball forward, since we are in the tundra of New Jersey at the moment. And I think that's super important
Still
just to do that auto regulation and check in.
I think that's like you mentioned it at the beginning of this episode, but I think if there is like a perfect answer of like what's the best amount of training you can do,
it
think
depends, right?
the answer is it depends. I think it really does just come to consistency. Like you mentioned it earlier, like the amount of days of training you get in a week is going to change. Like I think that's for certain. It's not always going to be the same. But the important thing at the end of the day is that you're consistently getting in your training. I'd say not missing a week is more important than getting 5 versus 3 days in a week. Like the little differences.
And something I think also that like builds on top of what everyone's saying too is like recognizing patterns and kind of like developing pattern recognition for your training and like 6-7. So I think like also like realizing like what works for you with like carb cycling, like Coach Sharon said, on the days she lifts, and like realizing like, hey, I actually feel stronger when I have carbs than like on this day. And I think a lot of it boils down to like realizing like what works for you that day. I mean, like online people have like recommendations of what worked for them, but I think it's like recognizing patterns of like in your training. Like for my training personally, like I didn't realize I was not eating enough carbs and I wasn't eating enough, and I was like wondering like, oh, why is my lifts going down? And then I started eating more. I'm like, oh my god, they're going back up. Like magic. Yeah, science. So I think it's like it's cool because I think like with there's a lot of autonomy in training. I feel like everyone can agree. Like if the fancy science gym bros out there had like a magic schedule where it's like this will work 100% of the time if you stick to it. Like unfortunately, there's nothing really out there that like can guarantee that like this is going to work 100% for you. Sometimes you play around with things. Sometimes you have an off week. And I think it's good to distinguish also like with those patterns that you're recognizing what's a bad day versus what's overtrained or what's underfed. Like, are you just having a bad day? Like maybe you just woke up on the wrong side of the bed or just nothing feels good, nothing's fluid. Like, I think it's recognizing like those days and differentiating them from like actually like having to tap into like your nutrition or training and all that. So I think that's the fun part. I mean, it kind of sounds like for maybe someone that's not in the training, scary and confusing. But I think that's what's kind of the fun part. We can all agree on training is like there's a lot of autonomy in it. And you can honestly make those audibles as you go and kind of recognize like, oh, I know my body actually better than I thought I did. And nothing is just random. Like I can just be like, okay, maybe today's a bad day and maybe I just need to pull back a little bit. Or maybe it's like, this is a bad month and I need to, restructure my eating habits and all that.
Yeah.
We can dive into the details on like a later episode, but one thing I want to point out between Coach Bobby and Coach Sharon is with the carb cycling and being able to recognize like having higher carbs improves your performance. Both of you are gluten free, right? So exactly. So with that being said, a lot of people tend to fear carbs, especially if they are like gluten free or they have sensitivities and stuff. But that's where having a group of coaches like us, we can strategize those different ways of finding how to best fuel your performance. And we talked about fueling performance and looking at it from a diet versus a fuel perspective. It's really a good gateway into maximizing your time in the gym and just your quality of life overall if you can find the nutrition that best suits you.
Yeah.
So that's it for today. Frequency, consistency. Consistency, I think, is really what matters. Having fun is going to keep you in here as well. But that is all for today's episodes. Bobby's Pecs, do you have anything else you'd like to mention?
Eat more protein.
All right. On that note, the coaches and Bobby's Pecs will see you on the next episode. Boom.